Thank you very much. Good evening. And I guess you're all asking right now, what's an IT guy doing running a business organization? And so far, so good. Let me start by saying, and other people who have taken a position, I'm going to take an equally strong position. In case it hasn't already been made clear, the Chamber has always held the position that term limits policy was bad for Bermuda and bad for Bermudians and should be abolished. We did not support the suspension because it would have led to an extended uncertainty, particularly to the business community. Equally important, and this is, I don't want to emphasize this, the Chamber is 100% supportive of work permits and the need to protect employment for Bermudians. And in that regard, we have our EVP, it sits on a committee and has done so since with the former government and the current government to review work permit policy along with, I believe, union representations and other people. The problems associated with term limits are as follows. Businesses were forced to replace a non-Bermudian simply because they had reached a 6-year time frame with another non-Bermudian due because there wasn't a qualified Bermudian available for the position. Companies simply moved the person and the position to another jurisdiction, having an impact on the economy. International companies decided to expand the departments or divisions in other jurisdictions to avoid the issue altogether. And I should mention here, local companies, by some accounts, were actually impacted more so than some of the international companies, given the number of waivers that were granted. In addition, the varying enforcement of the policy by 5 different ministers over the last 5 years, I would say, has also created some uncertainty amongst the business community. And that is with regard to the issuing and granting of waivers. And I would say finally, we will never know how many companies were discouraged from setting up shop here due to the policy. They may have looked at all the other advantages of Bermuda, but not come here because of the term limits policy. International business is the main contributor to Bermuda's GDP. And to give you a comparison, and the GDP is around 5.5 billion, as I understand it. They contribute in excess of 60% to the GDP. This is compared to tourism of 4.2%. The former government, I believe the current government's goal is to get up to 5.2% by 2022 for tourism. Now, that's a lot of money. And it's a big, huge contribution to the GDP and what we all live off in this island. According to government's own statistics, more than 3,000 jobs have been lost over the past 3 to 4 years. And there are other estimates that are higher, but let's just stick with the government statistics. In addition, as it stands to reason, again, a government report published last year said that $150 million in spending has been removed from the economy as a result. This is a significant number. There are several issues which have negatively impacted on jobs and the local economy. Certainly the global recession, and nobody can deny that. However, locally, the implementation of term limits, the payroll tax hike in 2010 specifically impacted international business. Technology advances, particularly in communications, basically people can work from anywhere in the world. They don't have to be in Bermuda anymore. And global regulatory changes which have affected the Bermuda advantage. So there used to be advantages of coming here, and there are lots of pressures around the world which are changing the benefit of coming here. And we need to do what we can to remove any impediments we have control over, because we can't control global regulatory changes. And ironically, many of these events happened around the same period. I mean, you can call it a perfect storm if you like. The effect of job losses on the economy has been severe. And I don't think I have to tell anybody in this room that, and has affected every single Bermudian in some way. And just bear with me, you'll all know it, but I'm going to list them off anyway so that you know. There's a lot less construction going on. I'll give you my own personal example. We were looking to replace some windows. The mason said these were available immediately. 3 to 4 years ago, we would have had to wait 3 to 4 months, if not longer, for that. There's less retail spending. You would have seen today, I believe it was today, the report that December retail spending was down by another 3.7%. That's December. That is the strongest month of the year for retail in Bermuda. They're down by 3.7%.
Most for severe.
Less use of restaurants. And that's clear as well. You can go to any restaurant in Hamilton, go tonight, you'll see many of them are empty. Taxis are underutilized. Walk up Church Street, as I do most evenings, and you'll see the taxis that wait along Church Street, sort of adjacent to City Hall Car Park. They actually have to go, they're actually parking up the road further up Church Street now because there's not enough room. And I take the taxi home about 3 times a month. And on every single occasion, I take the opportunity of talking to the driver and asking how things are going. And again, I don't have to tell you, some of you may be taxi drivers, you're feeling it as well. Real estate, rental income, and property prices are significantly depressed. And I just want to emphasize the importance of that. Many Bermudians, young Bermudians particularly, purchased housing during admittedly the high period. And some of them have relied on and did rely on rental income to contribute and help them pay for their mortgages. And I would suggest to you, a lot of those people now are suffering. They probably owe more on the house than it's currently worth on the market. That's a serious problem.
Okay, all right.
And then clearly several businesses closing down. 2 seconds. Airlines, the other issue is, and these are side issues, airlines have experienced a significant decline in passenger loads. You will have seen recently airlines have cut back on the frequency, and they've also cut back on the size of the aircraft.
Okay, sir, we thank you. Thank you. Next up, and without any further ado, to keep this going, we want to keep this in a timely order and a timely fashion so we can try to be out by 7 or 7:30. Next up, we have Mr. Michael Ross, who is a painting contractor. Michael Ross began his career in the corporate world at Kemp & Whittle as an auditor while pursuing his professional designation as a certified public accountant. As a person who believes in the adage, if you don't succeed at first try, try again, Michael was successfully qualified as a CP after more than one attempt. Mr. Ross was employed as an accountant in the corporate sector of Bermuda, including the Bank of Bermuda, Headington Insurance and International Advisory Services, before resigning to work in the construction industry. He now operates his own painting contracting company. Brother Mike.
Yeah, thank you very much. In order for me to start, I think you need to know 3 things about myself, and I'm going to try and answer them. The first is, who am I? The second I'm going to try and do is, why am I here? And the third thing I'm going to try and answer is, what are my concerns? Let me start this way. I'm going to read something by an American theologian, Reinhold Niebuhr, and he says, God, give me grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, courage to change the things which should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking as Jesus did the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Some of you might not understand those concepts, but I'll put it to you in another way. A philosopher, W.W. Bartley, says, for every ailment under the sun, there is a remedy, or there is none. If there be one, try to find it. If there be none, never mind it. So, I think, who am I? First of all, I'd like to say that, God will give you the peace and the courage and the wisdom to overcome life's greatest challenges. In my life, there are many people who have helped me. There's my mother. She was a motivator. She provided me with a lot of encouragement to pursue education and academics. There was my father, a wise person, who's given me counsel to help me deal with anger and bitterness. Then I have people like my grandfather, who's given me courage. And he would say, you don't have to be afraid when you're speaking the truth. So there are a lot of good people that have helped to shape my life. What is my story? I bet you didn't know that I attained 11 GCEs while attending Warwick Academy. I bet you didn't know I graduated with honors from Morehouse College, cum laude, with my bachelor's degree.
Yes.
I bet you didn't know that I attained a professional designation. I'm a certified public accountant. Yet, with all my individual accomplishments and dedication to study, achievements and talent that I've shown, I no longer pursue a career in international business, nor the corporate world. You might ask why. How many of you know that no matter how hard you try, you cannot make it on your own? There's a popular phrase that we want to band about now, which says, in Bermuda, let's work together. Well, working together is a combination of bringing together different people with different talents and unique skills. Why am I here? Well, I'm here to get understanding and knowledge as well. I don't think I'm the smartest person on this panel. I'm here, like many of you in the audience, and I don't feel like I'm more important than anybody. I think we all have equal value, and each equal value which needs to be heard. I'm not a politician, not a big businessman, not even a union representative. But I do believe I have something to contribute. So we're all here to gain understanding, and we must try and understand one another, knowing that my concerns aren't your concerns. And we're looking to find common ground upon which we can build some sort of relationship. Well, that brings me to the third point. What are my concerns? Term limits have been said to be unnecessary, and we just do away with them. Well, if I look at these statistics, I would have to say that's interesting, because 35% of those term limits were extended. 35% of them, they decided that let's exempt them, and 30% had to be held by term limits. So I don't think term limits is a failed policy at all. First of all, I think doing away with term limits has definitely brought a measure of calm to the people who term limits are affecting.
1 minute, Brother Mike.
Yes. But I don't think that doing away with term limits has done a great deal to accomplishing what we might see as providing jobs for Bermudians and ensuring that Bermudians are given first dibs. As a matter of fact, I would have thought that the work permits, if we go back to them, has shown us that the work permits have utterly failed us. And if you have a second layer in there, like term limits, then it sort of like weeds out some people that have habitually gotten away with murder under the work permit policy. I would like to read you one thing which sort of struck me, and
Very quickly.
I will. The minister said and I'll just read it from Saturday's paper. He said he had an application come across his desk with someone asking for 10 years experience for a pot washer. And he says, we got to get that mindset out of employers that think they can get away with that kind of thing. Those are his quotes. It's a direct quote. I would suggest that if the minister operates by the work permits that are in place, it'll be very evident to me that the work permit policy is a serious problem, which he himself can address, but if I read further on, you would see that he didn't address it.
Okay. Thank you, brother. Next, we'd like to introduce Mr. Keith Jensen, who's the president of the Bermuda Employers Council. Keith Jensen is a Bermudian who graduated from McGill University with a business degree concentrating in human resources and labor relations. He was general manager of the daily newspaper before taking on additional responsibilities as president of BEC. He anticipates being reappointed to the Labor Advisory Council, the National Training Board, and the Occupational Safety and Health Advisory Committee. Mr. Jensen was involved in the formation of the Employee Assistance Program and organizations that evolved to be now known as the Bermuda Resource Association and the Center for Alcohol and Drug Abuse. He is currently on the board of the EAP. Mr. Jensen, good evening.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. The protocols have been established, so I don't have to go through thanking everyone for being here this evening. Let me remind you of some of the data that was distributed at a public forum in 2011. And actually, it was here on this sheet of paper, some of you may have picked it up when you came in. And it reminded me of a different economic statistic that Mr. Vieira referred to, and that is the source of Bermuda's foreign income. And in the statistic, it shows that in 2010, that's the data that's on this forum piece of paper, that 87 cents of every dollar that comes in through foreign exchange comes through international business. And 13 cents of that foreign exchange for every dollar that comes in comes through tourism. And it shows the importance of international business as far as Bermuda is concerned. Also, on the back of that sheet of paper, which you may have picked up, I won't go through it, but there's a diagram which refers to what happens when a new international business is set up or a new hotel is set up. And it gives you a diagram of the flow of funds that go through the island to different sectors, and how it may affect jobs, and how it affects employment, and how it affects the business environment, and how it affects everyone in the community. And I'll draw that to your attention. But if 87 cents of every dollar in foreign earnings comes from international business, it makes sense to cultivate international business, and it makes sense to create conditions so you can expand international business and not turn away business and have business leave the island. It's also important, of course, to get tourism investment and get the foreign exchange, as far as tourism is concerned, up a lot higher. So what do the leaders of international business say? Well, back in 2010, the Association of Bermuda International Companies says the world has changed significantly in the decade, the 10 years that is, since term limit policy was first defined. The business world has changed significantly, and Bermuda faces much greater worldwide competition for its products and the staff to service them. Bermuda's competitive advantage has been eroded. The term limit policy is regularly cited in exit interviews by international recruiters and business leaders as a policy that has a negative effect on how people view Bermuda as a place to do business and to work. Removing the term limit policy would counter this negativity without damaging the interests of aspirations of Bermudians. In that same year, the Association of Bermuda Insurers and Reinsurers, some 22 members that represent about $1 billion of contribution to the economy, says that it is critical we attract and retain high-quality insurance professionals in Bermuda, and the cost of those employees are not out of line with other jurisdictions. We want to work with policymakers to make that a reality in 2010. In 2012, we have the same association saying they noted a decline of 23% employment in 5 of its members, 5 out of 22. So it called for an accelerated action by government to encourage ABIR members to locate senior executives here in Bermuda that would be helpful to the economy. The numbers from the survey indicate that there's a direct correlation between the senior executives being in Bermuda and the employment of Bermudians. Why is ABIR so important, and those executives and those businesses? Well, they spend $28 million in Bermuda's hotels, airfare, restaurants, taxis, and catering. It has an impact of over $85 million in accounting, actuarial, and temporary services, $12 million in charities, and $121 million in construction, real estate, and housing, and almost $700 million in compensation paid to employees in Bermuda. That's among those 22 companies. Unfortunately, the amount of compensation paid to people in Bermuda declined by some $40 million. In today's Gazette, Craig Simmons, economist, draws attention to the need for unions, employers, and government to have a focus on competitiveness and our competitiveness in the international market. That's not exactly his words, but that's what he was driving towards. He actually said that the competitors are the enemy, which leads me to believe that he's thinking that Bermudians should not see enemies among themselves. But who are our competitors? So I looked on the Business Bermuda website and found that they are numerous. Switzerland, Cayman Islands, British Virgin Islands, Channel Islands, Singapore, Mauritius, Anguilla, Panama, Barbados, Ireland, Delaware, Vermont, and Luxembourg. And here we are competing with those places that are attracting and trying to attract our business to them.